Hello everybody and welcome back. This is the Connecticut Driver's License application, video 3 in the series and our second in the user interface. So on the screen right now is where we left off, and we just introduced the idea of the HTML design toolbox with the CSS properties. So make sure that you are on not the code toggle, but the design toggle within your code.org project. Also make sure that you have the proper naming on this too, Unit 2, Connecticut Driver's License, and then your initials, and then hit save. All right, so we want to wrap up the user interface here, so I want to go back into my tools, and the next target that I'd like to grab is the image tool, so to speak. So move your cursor over that and drag it to the point in the screen where you think you might want that. We also have two inputs. So I'm going to bring a text input over on this side here, and I'm going to drag I'm going to keep that one there. We'll duplicate that. Finally, we have another image down below. This is going to be for the icon, and then a button. So let's drag the button down here. So we will set the properties for these. Let's start with our image to begin. Okay, as we did in the past, for our HTML element, we want to come in and change the ID to Connecticut capital with an O. Width, we want to change the width of this HTML element to 150 pixels, height to 110, X position and Y position we want at 85. So, again, this was predetermined. This is what you will be doing in your prototypes, and then you'll be doing some adjusting once you bring it to the screen. Now, where do we get the image is the question. So right here where you see the image rectangle, there is a choose off to the right hand side. Please select that, and we have three different options here. We have my files, which we are going to use. We're going to upload a file that we have. You could also link to an image. If you are doing a Google search, you could right click and go get a copy link address and put that link here. Or we are going to use this shortly. You could go to Font Awesome Icons. So we'll do that in a moment. But right now, let's go to My Files, Upload File, and I'm going to grab something. In my downloads, so this should be brought in, and now I have the option. It's showing me the photo that I've selected, and I just click choose. So I've brought the image in, and now notice, let's see, we want the option to fit image. We want fill. We want to fill the entire width and height of 150 by 110. So remember, that's what's controlling the rectangle. The image is filling within the rectangle. Border width, we're going to keep at 0. And border radius, watch what this does. The border radius actually softens up the curves on there. So it provides rounded corners on the edge, so it gives it a softer look. Okay, let's move down to our input. So just select in there, and notice you should have a text input in the ID. Let's change that. And we're going to put name input. Okay, and then in placeholder, let's put enter name, and that's going to come up faintly, and it provides the user with instructions on what to place in the placeholder. Width, we want 130, height width 130, height 30 pixels. That's the size of our rectangle. We want it positioned at x15, y235 as our coordinates. And let's change we'll keep background and text color as is. Please change the font family to Lucida Council. And font size, we are going to change to 12. Alignment, we want the text align to be center. And we want a border radius of 10. And let's remove the border to 0. Okay, So we have the enter name a little softened as well. And if you recall, we have its partner alongside there. So we want to use our trick, the duplicate key. So once we have this set, select to duplicate. And let's slide over text input 2 right off to the side here. Very important. Let's go into the ID and change it to age input. And specifically, the name input and age input is going to be used to store that information. We're going to pick that up with JavaScript, so we need that clear identifier. In the placeholder, just put enter. Age, width, and height should stay the same at 130 and 30. X position we want at a different location from the copy. We want it at 175. We want the same Y position of 235 so that it lines up vertically. And then Lucida console, font size 12, center alignment, no border, and a border radius of 10. That all should stay the same. Okay, let's move down to the next image or next HTML element, and that's that blank image here. So select that, and notice now if we scroll over to properties, we have the ID changes to image 2. So you want to be careful as you're working with your elements, that you're checking that name, that ID, and make sure you're not overriding something you've already done. And keep in mind that the screen name is actually an ID itself. That is an HTML element. It's the body tag for those that remember from HTML last year. Okay, so let's see. Image 2 we want to change to car icon. Okay, the width and height we want to keep at 100, a perfect square. That's our HTML element size. We want the positioning of this on the screen to be at 110, 270. So 110 for X, 270 for Y. And now let's go into the image once again. We are going to utilize now something called Font Awesome icons. This is a small portion of the Font Awesome library that is massive, but Code Studio brings that in here for our convenience. So let's select that. And I want to just type in car in the search. And we should have the car right down here. Let's select that, and it brings the car into our image. So immediately let's get our car color going here. We want to use the following hex reference of 4F709C. So it's a slightly lighter shade, and this is coming from the Color Hunt palette that I spoke of in the previous video. All right. Let's slide down to the final element on the first page. Let's select the button. And as you could guess, we're going to change the button ID first. So let's slide up to that. And if you noticed, it auto-populates button 1 or text input 1 and so on. And we want to make sure that we are giving proper names so we can recognize this, or anyone working on the project can recognize the purpose behind the HTML element, so that when we are calling it into JavaScript, it makes sense and we know which one we're using. Okay, so with results button as the ID, in the text, we want the user to see learn more. So we type that in. And the width of this rectangle will be 150, height will be 40, X position will be 85, and Y position will be 375. Now we want to change the text and background color. So let's select the text color first, and this is again going to come from the palette on Color Hunt. And the text color should be familiar. We're going to use the background color 213555, so change that in your hex reference. And now we want that to pop on a background, again coming from the color palette. So this will be our accent color, and that is going to be E5D 283. Okay. Font size, we want to change to 16. And we want Lucida Console as our font family to be consistent. Text align, we want to be centered. Border, we want border width to be 0. Whoops. And border radius, we're going to change to 10. And that's also to maintain some consistency throughout. Okay, so it looks like our first page is somewhat complete. I say somewhat because I do want to go back up to the top at the end and remove the borders around the top headers. But for now, let's keep that. And we're going to create the second page. All right, for our second page, you may have guessed it, we're going to use our friend the duplicate here because we want to maintain colors and so on. We will make some changes, so let's click off of the Learn More. So notice we have the Results button up here. I'm going to click off of anything else so that I have the ID of home here. So now the reference is simply to the homepage body, which incorporates everything. I want to hit Duplicate. And once I hit duplicate, notice screen 1 came up. If you want to just double check that, you can see our home screen is here. I pull down and get screen. Oops, I don't want to do that. I want to pull down and get to screen 1 again. And we're going to click off of that, just like we did with the first. And I have my screen 1 reference for ID. We want to change this ID to results. So this is going to be our page 2. Background stays the same. But the results page did not have the capital image or the entry for name and age. So when we want to remove an element, and make sure you're doing this on the results page and not the home page. So one more time, pull that home down. There we go. ID changes. When we pull this down, we go to results. It looks the same, but again, we made the copy. So hover over the image, click and drag it completely off to the toolbox. Do the same with the name input and age input, and we're going to move the car up. Okay, so our car, notice, is a different image reference. Okay, so we're going to change that to car icon 2. Remember, car icon 1 is on the front page. Width and height is going to stay the same at 100. X position should be at 110. Y at 85 for the ordered pair. And we're keeping the same image. Icon color stays the same, contains, so everything else should stay the same with border radius and border at 0. Okay, next we want to bring in a main text area. So come back down to text area and drag that somewhere to the middle of this screen. And this text area, we want to scroll up to the ID. Notice the ID changed, so we're going to put output here. And if you remember when we demoed the app, this is where the actual paragraph comes up, guiding our user based on the decision. So we're going to keep the text blank because that text is going to come from the JavaScript decision. All right, and the width, let's change that to 250. Height, we're going to change to 175, make that nice and big. X position, we want that at 35, and Y position, we want at 185. Okay, and now text color, let's match what we had in the button. We're going to use the background color 213555, and we're going to change the background here to the background of the button that we used on the front page, and that is E5D 283. And again, these are coming from the Color Hunt color palette. Font size we want to change. So font size is going to be when there is text generated. We want that to be at 15. And we want this to be left aligned, border of 0. Border color doesn't apply, and we want to round our corners with a border radius of 10 as we've done throughout the project. Okay, so we have one final thing to do here. We want to click down on the button and change that. So we have button number 2. Let's go up and change that ID. Okay, again, let's change the ID to adult learner link. And I'm using lower camel case, so lowercase a for adult, capital L for learner, capital L for link, no spaces. That's considered adult, lower camel case. It's often used in programming. We're going to use it here in the label. In the text, we want the user to see adult learner. For this button, we want the width at 110, height at 40, X position at 105, and Y position at 390. Text color, please go in and select the hex reference to all Fs. That will be the white color. And then the background color, please go in and change that to 4F709C. 4F709C. Now, a little heads up here. If you're seeing that 0 and you, at least this happened to me, and you're like, okay, you're looking at, many times we copy and paste it from a color hunt or so on. But if you're not sure if that's a 0 or an O, remind yourself that hexadecimals are from 0 to 9, 10 digits, and then A through F. So that has to be a 0. So that's just a little hex reference for you. Let's change the font family to Lucida Console, font size of 15. Center alignment, no border, and a border radius of 10. Okay, so now, if you remember, this is link number 1. So we want this link to go somewhere. But we also want an option for 2 other links. So we're going to use our friend to duplicate, but then we're going to kind of put these buttons behind each other. And we will hide 2 of them and only show 1 within the actual programming. So let's actually go to adult learner link and hit duplicate. Okay, and then I duplicated again a 3rd one, so I just slid them alongside. So let's keep adult learner, the middle one, exactly at 105, 390 for our position. And let's select the left-hand side adult learner. And come on up to button 3 ID, and we're going to change that to underage link. And this is when the learner is under age 16. We want them to plan ahead for their driver's license. So we're going to put that in the reference. So now we want to do the same for adult learner on the right-hand side. So select that, and notice button 4 comes up. And let's change the ID from button 4 to teen link. So this is if the age is age 16 or 17. And we want to change the text to teen learner in the button itself. And I believe that is it. Okay, so we want 110, height of 40. Mine changed a little bit there. So 110, 40. I want X position of, I'm going to keep that 220 right now. Y position 390, not 395. That's what they're aligning. And everything else stays the same. Okay, so font size 15, center, border radius of 10, no border. Okay, so now we have an issue of we do not want these all lined up. So all we need to do is go in and change everything to a X position of 105. So let's click on the plan ahead. Make sure you've got that underage link highlighted here. And we're going to select that as 105. Go over to Teen Learners, select on that. Make sure the Teen Link ID comes up. Let's move that to 105. And now all three are kind of sitting on top of each other. And we will hide one or the other as need be. So at this point, we have completed the user interface. We have results page and we have our home page. So congratulations, very simple. This is a recall of your HTML, CSS days. And now it is time to get JavaScript into the action to get some interaction with the user interface. We'll see you in the next one when we start applying the JavaScript programming language.